Good evening. I'd like to convene this regular town meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Queens. Join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for joining us tonight. I have 3 announcements. Family story time at RCS Community Library, January 16th, is from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. The middle school and high school select ensemble concert at the RCS High School Auditorium is also on January 16th from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And the RCS Athletics Hall of Fame induction at the RCS School District, if it's a high school, and January 18th from 6:30 to 7:30. I'd like to, on the record that all board members are present, and make a motion to accept the minutes from December 26th, 2024.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those are accepted. Okay. So moving to old business.
Do we have to do minutes for the organizational meeting or no?
Yeah, I was curious about that too.
You're not done. I just got the resolutions.
Okay, I didn't know. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you have them.
Thanks.
Working through old business. So old business is going to be the past due invoices and the prepaid check review that we were talking about at the last meeting. And just to reiterate the responsibilities of the CFO as combining strategic financial oversight with the leadership of the town's overall operations. This is from the budget message. And the business office manager supports these efforts by her administrative financial operations, such as procurement and maintaining financial records. And the accountant handles the detailed financial tasks, ledger maintenance and reconciling accounts. So with that in mind, the past due invoices that we had a conversation about, Regina had a message about it, that it's common for companies to send past due invoices in the interim time that payments have been sent, or at times that payments are posted incorrectly. Statements that our office continually pays bills late is untrue. She usually prepays within the first 10 days of every month, and still some random invoices will come through, and the rest are paid in a monthly abstract. If we receive invoices late, then of course they're paid late, which is often the case according to Regina. So the example that we have, and I think we were mentioned in the court last time, was for New York penal law books at $77.95 that were ordered in October 30th, and then was stamped by the court, received December 17th. Now that check went out on the 23rd of December for a due date of the 25th. So anybody that's ever sent a check out knows it's not going to take 2 days to get to the company and for the company to process it. So a late, past due invoice was emailed.
So there was an invoice, there was a purchase made on October 30th.
Right. So if you don't code law books.
The town of Queens didn't receive the invoice until December 16th, you're saying?
Well, it was stamped by December 17th, was when it was filed. We thought that was the clerk's stamp, but it's the Queens Court stamp. But it's basically received, same thing.
Okay. And then you said the check was paid on the 23rd?
Yeah.
Was it a prepay?
No.
So the check was paid prior to the board providing resolution?
Well, the board doesn't have to have a resolution. It's $77. So
No.
they just order.
It still has to go through the voucher process.
Okay.
So we didn't approve vouchers by board resolution until December 26th. So you're saying a check went out on December 23rd, prior to the board authorizing payment.
I'm saying that the check was, the encoded date was December 23rd and the received date was the 23rd. Yeah, exactly right. So we didn't get the information until our office, until I believe the 17th.
But that still doesn't explain why a check went out before the voucher was approved and the resolution was approved to pay the invoice.
Well, it was probably sitting on our desk and then probably went in front of the board at some point.
Now, do the checks get cut and then they sit in the pile and then they get mailed out after we approve them, or did she mail this check out?
So,
It should be cut until the day after the board meeting.
Okay.
So we
it's not
approved-
very cut prior to approval.
Right, but she writes checks all the way through the time as they come in before the month. I mean, so in the, just to clarify, in 2024, there were 5 of these, and the emails prove that every single one was, it was just after the time. So there was no malfeasance, there was no mistakes, that's just the way it goes. And all that just to kind of explain, to go into the pay review that you suggested, we can do that, and here is how we can do it. The Monday before, if you want to come in before it prepays, and Regina sent out, everybody got this email, monthly voucher due dates. So we went through the calendar, and if we do it the Monday before, you can come into the supervisor's office and go through the prepays. Prepays will still come in from that Monday to Thursday, I think, the January 16th we're using as an example. So then they'll still have to be paid even though you didn't review them. So then we thought, well, what if we do it on the day of? So there will, we can do the day of, January 16th, for example. You can come in and review them before she sends them to the clerk's office. But then there is the very distinct possibility that past due invoices will start to come in because Regina usually sends them in earlier in the month. And
yeah, I mean, we can't create a process that creates more issues.
correct, because the past due invoices for insurance payments, Central Hudson, all the utilities, payroll, retirement, street lights.
Yeah, right.
So those are the 2 options. The Monday before the voucher due dates, which vouchers will still continue to trickle in, or the day of.
So you're saying that no prepays would actually go out until the Monday before voucher day? Because typically prepays are paid weekly.
Right.
Right.
No, what do you say that again?
You're stating that they could come in on the Monday before voucher day and go through prepays. But those prepays are paid, that's why they're prepays. So
Right.
those checks have already been cut. I think they were more interested in seeing them before they were cut.
She's saying that she can hold off on that.
So you're saying that they're gonna not pay prepays until
Right.
next Monday.
This process that's being suggested will create a host of problems.
Yeah.
Is the point. And as Mike suggested last time, there are 5 points of checks and balances for prepays. And
I was just trying to come up with a way. I wasn't suggesting an idea that was going to cause more issues than are already there.
right, we're just having the discussion. So, and just to put a bit of clarity on it, in the year 2024, there were 2 mistakes that you caught, one for 9 cents in April and the last one for 15 cents. Those do get corrected. So there really isn't an issue, but if you do want to come in and review them, you can do that. If any board member wants to come in and review them. That brings us to civil housing and old business. Rich had sent out an email if the board's comfortable moving forward with Rich working on an agreement with Liberty. So how are we feeling about that?
I mean, I'm comfortable with the pilot program.
Is it a pilot? Because I don't want to keep using the word pilot because it is a pilot.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's expressly provided.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, they came in, they talked to us for a little while about what their plans are for the senior housing units and where they're getting some of the money and funds from. I think we have a large need for senior housing, and not only senior housing, but good senior housing. And it seems like they're ready to take the steps to make that building, which is historical, it's a beautiful building, to make that building not only livable, but sort of well renovated for the people. And I think that's something that we could really look forward to. The 30-year thing, I think Linda and I had a talk. The 30-year thing seems to me long. If they do what they say they're going to do, I would feel more comfortable with like a shorter time period. And then if you do what you say you're going to do, then come back to us, and by all means, we'll give you another extension on it. But just a 30-year out of the gate seems a little, to me, seems a little long.
Yes.
And that would be something you would work out with John?
So I did. I had a conversation with John this afternoon, and so there were a couple issues out there, right? One was the past due taxes that the town
I
clerk
saw
raised.
your email.
They've indicated that's what they would use their state funding for, would be to clean up that. I asked him about the term, because it's actually not a 30-year term, it's a proposed 40-year term. And he indicated that, they put that number in there because it's essentially the maximum under the statute.
Yeah.
But he did indicate that most that they enter into are 32 years, and that I got the impression they could reduce it to that. The reason they seek a 32-year loan is that they have a 30-year financing from the state, and that the underwriters for that financing basically like to know what are the projected taxes going to be as part of underwriting those loans. And so with a 32-year agreement, it basically gives them a 2-year period to do the construction and the renovations, and then they have a 30-year loan on top of it. So that is why they're asking for that amount. If we went back to them and said, well, we could only agree to 20, they would have to go to the state's underwriters and see if they would be willing to issue the bonds or the loans based on that. And so that's really what's driving that.
Is that standard procedure for this type of housing, throughout the
John has
state?
indicated, their attorney has indicated that it is. It makes sense to me as he described it, frankly. If they're going out and getting 30-year loans, it makes sense to me that the underwriters would want some sense of certainty in terms of as many of the potential expenses that are associated with the facility as they can get, and so that's why they seek it. We could try and sort of find out if there are others that go shorter. Certainly the statute would allow you to go shorter. It's just the practicalities of the financing that drive that number.
Who is responsible for managing the finances? They don't own it, they're just going to manage the building. So is the current owner still the owner that will be paying the utilities?
I don't think the current owner is going to be in the mix. I guess I don't want to say for sure what the actual ownership arrangement would be, but I read say that, and I forget if it was the email from the attorney or the email from the principal at Liberty, but basically before they take title, they want to be sure that these issues of past due taxes are cleaned up. And that's why that's part of what the state funding is going to be used for. So I don't think it would be the current owners. I think it would be Liberty or some, entity associated with them.
And Liberty doesn't contract out their management? I thought they contracted out the management of the building, that they weren't the managers of the building.
Yeah, that I don't know. I could certainly ask that.
Okay.
That's not really reflected in the pilot
Right,
agreement, right?
right,
But
it
we could certainly,
Right.
we could ask for clarification.
Thank you.
And just to sort of to bring you fully up to speed, the other question that I asked him that jumped out to me was that the minimum pilot payment under the prior agreement was $10,000 a year, depending on rents and whatnot. It potentially would have been higher than that. What was reflected in this was $2,000 a year. I've asked him how they came up with that number, and he was going to go back to his clients and find out. He did note that under the real property tax law, because they've entered into formal agreements with either the state or the federal government to have a certain percentage of the facility rented to lower income units, they get a more beneficial assessment process. So the assessor doesn't look at it as though what's the highest and best use of this property, right? If you were to, obviously the property would be worth more if you were renting the units out at market rate. And because it's so restricted, they use a different calculation under the real property tax law, and he thinks that calculation may in fact actually approximate that $2,000 a year, which is why they came up with that number, but he was going to confirm.
That makes sense.
So I think there's still some outstanding questions that need to be answered. I don't see why we can't engage, in discussions with them and have you start working on an agreement, but I think there's still some questions that need to be answered.
Okay, so I'll start to clarify the questions that I can think of. If anyone has any other questions, like I think the management one is a very good one that frankly I would not have really focused on, so let me know and I will try to get as many answers as I can in advance of the next time that we send something back to you.
I know that they're raising the rents too. When their leases are up, their rents go up. So I just would like to know at what point is the lowest and the highest amount of rent that they can charge a senior to live there. So it's accessible to seniors.
Right, and so there are gonna be certain state-imposed thresholds, but I
That's
can
what I would
certainly
think,
confirm
right.
what those are.
So are we landing on, while you're working out an agreement with John, we will all be on the email chains to, if we have questions that arise?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would necessarily be, I'll keep you updated throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
Because I think if you guys have questions, I would want them to come through me and to John. But I think my takeaway is that there's still a consensus that we're open to it. We have some outstanding questions. Obviously, you need to resolve some of those details. And so I'll try to work through that process with him and then come back to you.
All right, so that brings us to, just to the board, I think we had spoken at the organizational meeting about the investment policy and the procurement policy that Rich had updated. If everyone has reviewed it, if they feel like moving forward, if anyone needs more time to review, we can hold off on it.
I need more time.
More time?
Yeah, I think a little more time would be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I generally think they're going in the right direction, so, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, historically, it looks like the town has tried to keep track with the recommendations from the state comptroller, and this is just sort of another step in that process.
Well, Rich, while we got you talking, why don't you update us on the PayPal being sort of attached
We're gonna
to,
talk about the grants to fund our old business. Where we are with
is that
the-
where we are?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, an old business?
Yeah, where we are, we're trying to,
So the
update the community as to where we're at with
Fast New York grant?
the Fast New York grant and maybe the USDA grant stuff that we,
Yeah, so
our meeting with LaBarge, maybe we can kind of update them.
yeah, we have that in the resolutions, but we can definitely address it now. So for the LaBerge, well, it's not the LaBerge grant, it's the
LaBarge,
USDA,
Yeah, USDA.
grant that we had the workshop about. If we want to act on that, we should, because we'll probably miss the spring window. If we don't, let me just pull up where I'm at here.
Wasn't the spring like May 30th or?
Yeah, I spoke with Ben after the meeting. So in order to if we decide to enter into the general service agreement, he'll be able to add the addendums to do work. That would be the apply the USDA grant, the environmental report, and the wastewater treatment plant report. Ben stresses that report grants are historically notoriously difficult to acquire. So we already have the $500,000, which we can use towards the reports that we need. And yeah, we would have to kind of move on it today if we want to decide for the summertime grants for the 3.2 million. And there's also a May deadline for New York Water for things that are already broken, like the Riverview lift station.
But we talked about if we went with LaBerge, that we would use some of that $500,000 to repair the Riverview lift station.
Yeah, that'd be a question for USDA, Colleen Caraher, to see if we can spend that money and then possibly be reimbursed for it. Ben was saying, yeah, possibly, but that's a conversation that we would have to have. The other update on this is that, and I talked to Ben about it, Keith Geraldson stopped in the other day and told me that he just had a very rudimentary map of the sewer system that had I think it had the trunk line on it and everything else. He said that about 10 years ago, the roof was leaking at the wastewater treatment plant and sort of ruined and diminished a lot of the maps that we had. So it's on my list to contact CTML, I think at the time was the engineering group that may have done the maps, and MJ to see if they have anything, and also the village to see what they have. So our map situation isn't looking very good either. So I asked Ben if that was part of if that could possibly be used out of some of this grant money, and I think the answer was a tentative yes on when we're doing reports for the plant and the environmental study.
Yeah, we have to get all the studies done first, though, right? Like the environmental one, they said was about $50,000. We
Yeah,
can use some of the, the 500,000 for that, and
That's to go for more money.
that's to go for more money.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I think right now, short term,
Short
we have
term.
to focus on that $500,000 and fixing what's bleeding.
Yeah.
And that lift station sounds like it's bleeding pretty good.
Yeah.
yeah.
If there's money left over and
Right.
we want to proceed to try to get additional funding,
Mhm.
then fine. But I really think we need to focus on that
Yeah,
lift
and
station.
that was the point that he was making too when I said if we could just replace what's there now. But then there was a larger question of the MJ reports of the $600,000 replacement. If the industrial area maybe wants to kick in, or how that's going to work out. But if we want to engage with them, we have to get the service agreement.
Have you had any discussion, Supervisor, with MJ Engineering about the grant that MJ wrote that secured this $500,000?
Yeah, actually, I when I found out about it, I had them send me everything that they had, which was the Division Street and the Riverview studies that they had.
Because I think it would be beneficial because they wrote the grant. They're the ones that put I think it was 3.2 million on the repair. So I'd just like to kind of get some more information from
Didn't
them.
you say they started out they asked for wasn't it a smaller amount? They asked for the 2.1, but we got the $500,000. And then there's
It could be. I'd have to go
possibility-
back in my notes, but 3.2 sticks out on mine, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah, and there's two of them. Depending on which ones we apply for, there's one that is I think a 2.1, and then there's another one that's a larger to do the wastewater treatment plant renovation of 3.2. But I think there's a question of how much do we want to spend to get there and how much time
Right.
it will take. But I think engaging in general service agreement will start to get the ball rolling on that's basically how we're deciding to spend the money, is exactly what you're saying, on the reports and on the lift station. Just a matter of contacting Colleen and seeing what the USDA has to say about, and obviously we could probably get emergency funds too. He was
In the event
Ben was
that,
saying,
right,
yeah.
that was determined.
Which we're getting close to, because we got one
hope
lift station
not.
down, no maps.
I hope not.
So,
But-
yeah, we really need to move on this tonight if we want to.
But again, the general services agreement is just that. It's just a general services agreement, and no further work can be done until there's an amendment added to that general services agreement.
It gives them the ability to submit to you project-specific proposals,
Right,
to then do work on those
right.
proposals.
But we're under no obligation
You could-
to
you could
proceed
let
with them, to do anything with them.
it give you another engineering firm to use as an option.
Correct.
You could elect to never exercise that option.
Right.
Could we just clarify who Ben and Colleen are?
Ben Seiden is the vice president of LaBerge Group, and Colleen Caraher is a USDA grant agent.
Representative, yeah.
And, you know, I was just looking at the thing that Ben gave us at the meeting, and, you know, to get the $500,000 that, you know, it's awarded to us, but we have to still fill an application for it, and we still need to do the environmental review in order to get that $500,000. But we can use some of the $500,000 for the environmental review, and then we get, I guess, reimbursed for it. You know, we get $500,000. Right? That sounds
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
The overarching point is that,
But we got to do those two things first before we can even get the $500,000.
yeah, because if we tried to apply, and as he was saying, you would have to apply for next year if you wanted to just spend the majority of the money. You would have to apply for grants, for study grants, and according to him, those are difficult to get.
Yeah.
So that's why he said we have to decide how to spend the money, and I would say
Yeah.
to use them for what it's difficult to get, because we already have it.
Right.
And the Fast New York grant, we landed on, we were going to come up with some questions, but we decided possibly that if they come here first and give us a fuller view, a picture of what's happening, then we can come up with more detailed questions. It's kind of where we are with the Fast New York
Yes.
grant.
And so we suggested February 13th at that workshop, perhaps asking
Yeah, it's a regular meeting, yeah.
the
So,
principal players to come in, and that would be both the folks from Empire State Development and maybe Albany County and certainly Carver representatives, so that they could talk about exactly, you know, what they're proposing, where we are in the grant process, what the next steps would be, what maybe Albany County's involvement might be to alleviate concerns that we have.
And the 13th is a regular meeting?
13th is a regular meeting.
Yeah.
So I'll reach out to those folks and see if they're available.
Yeah, and then, like I said, if we can keep the agenda light for that night
Oh, yeah.
and just focus on that.
Okay, Rich, do you want to explain how maybe the resolution for PayPal, if we decide to go that way, would have to be attached to maybe the PayPal agreement?
Right, so, you know, this question has come up. There are certain vendors we use that really don't want to receive payment via check. In the past, I think some vendors were paid via credit card. We no longer have that particular credit card in place. There's been a discussion as to whether or not, say, PayPal might be an alternate approach for any of them. You know, first of all, in my office, we did just sort of take a look at this question because it's a little bit of an unusual way for municipalities to pay their bills. The comptroller, since at least 1979, that we found has allowed for it. There are certain recommendations they have in place in terms of how you would use that type of vehicle to make payments. And so what we suggested is maybe tied to any type of resolution authorizing either a credit card or a PayPal approach. We would have a more formal policy that would prescribe when it could be used, how it could be used, where they would be maintained, who would have access, under what circumstances they could be used, the types of payments that they could be used for. And so we've started to draft a proposed policy. And my thought would be that, you know, as part of an approval of that type of thing, maybe you'd want to consider that type of policy. It also strikes me that we may want to, the board may want to consider revisiting the credit card question as opposed to PayPal. I work with at least one other client who I think has credit cards where they're not tied to individual social security numbers. It's tied to the EIN for the business, and then there may be, you know, certain officials within the town who then would have a credit card in their name that, again, they could only use for limited purposes. But it does strike me that a credit card could potentially give you, it would leave you in a stronger position if there were ever like a fraudulent charge or that type of thing, right? Because you can challenge the credit card. As I looked at PayPal, it would either be tied to your bank account or tied to a credit card, in which case you'd have to have the credit card anyways. And so, you know, I think that's really what I was hoping to get some feedback from the board on. You know, are we receptive to this type of idea? And if we are, then maybe we could figure out what the options would be and submit to you a proposed policy that would limit how it would be used and managed.
I mean, to me, it sounds like a credit card for the town is the easier and safer thing to do. So if we can figure out how we can get a credit card for the town, in my opinion, without linking it to, one single person with their social security number and everything, I mean, municipalities must have these and do this. So if we can figure that out.
And I think what we're finding is, for better or for worse, there are certain vendors who just don't want to take a check.
Right.
And so that obviously presents a challenge.
So I mean,
They don't
I
like it,
a credit card better than a PayPal.
but they will still accept a check. Or are they saying that they're not going to accept a
I
check?
don't know. I think there are certain vendors that you just can't sort of
They don't make it easy
penetrate
for you
with
to do that,
with
no.
a check. I guess I don't know that for certain. I would defer to the people who are sort of here day to day, but something like Vimeo, I don't know that you can
Maybe you would
cut
need
them a
a
check.
credit
Card,
card for,
yeah.
Even,
and sometimes,
I mean, we've had credit cards before.
yeah.
So, yeah, I don't personally like the whole PayPal idea. We got a couple of emails from the supervisor and from the business office manager. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit more, because I don't really know what they're talking about, but just from a PayPal perspective, I don't think I worry about checks and balances. I worry about fraudulent activity, someone gaining access to our PayPal account that's potentially linked to our bank account. One of my questions was, what is the New York State Comptroller's guidance on the use of PayPal? And you kind of explained that. And I did find some information from the Comptroller's office. It says local governments can use third-party cash transfer applications, PayPal, Square, Stripe, Venmo, to accept payments. When this type of application is used, internal controls and best practices related to working with third-party vendors, including a service level agreement, should be established whenever possible. I don't know what a service level agreement is. I don't think that we have that in place currently. I also don't know that we have the necessary internal controls and best practices right now.
I don't know that any of it's in place at this point, because we're sort of at the beginning of the process of getting a sense of what the town board's comfort level would be, and so which path to pursue. But I agree, as part of that process, it would make sense to have, a formal policy and, really establish up front what the limitations would be and protections.
Yeah, a conversation today, when you were pointing that out, had me leaning towards a credit card also, and not PayPal for fraudulent reasons. So I guess, go ahead.
One of the questions I had is, because typically your process is, right, and we talked about it earlier, that you would audit a payment and then the check gets cut. And so in theory, in the credit card context, it's the audit of the bill that is the equivalent of that. And there is some statutory language that sort of addresses that. It's a little bit different. But with the credit card, you then would have the ability to contest a fraudulent charge or that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think there's more protections in place, with Visa, MasterCard versus PayPal.
Right, and we even found that with certain credit cards in the research that we had started, you can actually sort of select what types of purchases it couldn't be used for.
Okay.
Right, and so it couldn't be used for, whatever, to get a haircut or to
Tires.
Right, or there's just certain things that you could sort of proactively eliminate, and then you would still audit the bill, obviously, at the end of the month, but that might give people a little bit greater comfort level too.
Also, didn't we land on, I'm not sure what credit card, had social security numbers on it from human beings, but I found out that there is a Lowe's credit card that we have in municipality that's kept locked up, that's used by highway and sewer when they need it. So possibly a different bank would not require social security numbers from human beings.
Right, and I think identifying, trying to identify a bank that would allow us to do that would take some research, and so we can talk about that maybe whether you want us to do that research or like maybe, for example, Mr. Fazio could call around to see if we could find some options to take.
Yeah, I think we can do that before we get you involved too deeply.
But I think what we really want is it would have individual names on it for the particular officers, whether it would be, to the clerk, superintendent of highways, supervisor, that maybe would have some need for that type of use, maybe the clerk or whatever that might be. But it would be tied to the town rather than individuals, because I don't think it's fair to sort of put an individual in that situation.
So if it's good with the board, I'll move forward on just researching that and seeing what kind of banks work for municipalities.
Yeah, I just, Supervisor, I'd like to just talk about your emails that was pertaining to PayPal, just to give me a more understanding. So your email from 2024 to 11/23 that talked about PayPal, it says, our office would like to set up a PayPal account to use MailChimp on the town's website. MailChimp is a marketing automation platform and email marketing service that helps businesses and organizations communicate through the website and analyze email traffic. Entry-level fee is $13 per month and can increase up to $20 depending on the amount of contacts. In contrast, a platform such as HubSpot would be used to market the town and monetize the website. Our office would have to do more research on the probable outcome of marketing tourism in Queens against the cost of the HubSpot platform, $800 per month. And this is the reason we kept funds in digital media A 1670.4. Obviously, it would be a discussion if the board wished to monetize the website, but our office would like to develop the website with the prudence and economy of MailChimp to start. We would like to set up a PayPal account, as credit cards have been a source of risk and instability in the past for Queens. Can you just elaborate on what all of this is, MailChimp, your thoughts around this? Because it sounds like this is kind of what precipitated the whole PayPal.
Yeah, that was written on the day that we were speaking with our web developer, and MailChimp actually has a free platform, but we couldn't sign on to that because they require, PayPal or credit card. So we started to look into how we were going to do that, and the simplest platform for MailChimp is just for residents to put in their emails if they want to subscribe to certain services that the website could develop into, because we're all in the first stages of this. And so we were talking about the what is now the digital media line that had 26,000 and 13 was spent on the website, so there's still another 13. And why we kept it in there was because we didn't know where it was going to go, and we still don't. And if we were going to spend $800 a month on HubSpot, if we were selling merchandise of the town of Queens for tourism reasons, mugs and T-shirts and sweatshirts, I'm not sure if we could generate over $800 a month doing that. So sustainably over an amount of time, possibly over a year maybe. I have no idea. So that's why we would have to do the research, and that would probably come a lot later as we monitor the traffic that goes to their website, because we can monitor where websites that people are coming from to our website and going to, so we can see if there are spots that we can exploit for basically monetizing the town of Queens, selling whatever we would, advertising what we have if we're going to, move forward in the future on Geralman. Just basically, how are we going to generate revenue for the town is what that is about, in the slow process of bringing the information out for everyone to.
And so this idea was presented to you by our website developer? Is that correct?
Yeah, the MailChimp. I had never heard of MailChimp or HubSpot before this, because I've never had a website designed before. And we do have, and we're still in the process of learning WordPress. We have meetings on, the next coming Friday and the one after that, as we go in. We have the basic knowledge of putting on agendas and everything that we need to do legally. We want to start exploring how to monitor all the data that's coming in, who's coming to the website, are they residents, are they from out of town, are people going through. So we're putting all the businesses, every business that we can get on the website. So if somebody is driving through and they Google town of Queens or Up Hub near me, a halfway house will pop up with a Google map on it, just to drive tourism, just to drive revenue, basically the economic development of the businesses that already exist, and hopefully attract like other businesses once we start. You know, small business support basically is starting to kick in now in year 2. So that's the website story as of now.
Yeah, I was just it kind of correlated, obviously, because it was about PayPal. So it sounds like, based upon this discussion, that we would probably be putting PayPal on hold and we would be exploring a credit card.
Well, because the information that we've received from previous credit cards was that there was a bit of fraudulent activity and a bit of corruption. I mean, I haven't researched these. These are just from people that have been working in the town for ages. So I was a little leery of credit cards, and I thought PayPal might be a better fit. But whenever that was written a week or so ago, it's starting to pan out that maybe that's not such a great idea. I do not like the idea of PayPal being tied to a bank account. That's for sure.
While we're on the website, I noticed going through emails that our town clerk doesn't have access to the website to make postings. Is there a reason why she was taken off the website for any authorization to make postings for public notices?
Well, first of all, just to alleviate the burden of the town clerk having, especially during foil season, I think you said you get somewhere up to 180 foils during the season, and then tax season's coming up, and it seems to be fairly simple, and the supervisor's office is handling it fine.
Was that a problem for you to post stuff on the website or make public notices? I mean, that's part of your normal day-to-day stuff, to make public notices and post tax stuff on there?
Day-to-day thing, and part of the legal thing I'm a little worried about is when I do a public notice, it's a legal notice. So sometimes when that notice is put on there, it's not verbatim of what I did in the paper. Mm-hmm. Is that a problem? Like if I send a notice, it should just be cut and paste. Mm-hmm. It should not be changed. And sometimes the wording is changed, and it's not written as a public notice.
On a website?
Yeah, I don't think I can have.
So who made the decision to take her duties of posting that off the website? Was that a unilateral decision on your part?
There's been changes, not just cut and pasted and put on the website?
I gave you a public notice for the January 2nd meeting, and it wasn't put on the website as that. It was come to the meeting, very elegantly put, but it was not a certified public notice. So I don't know legally if.
Again, my question is who made the decision to take her off the access for the website for duties that she was doing already to make public notices and tax notices? Was that your decision to just unilaterally take her off the access for that?
It was the supervisor's office, yes, to learn the website and move forward with it. Okay. And however that starts to move forward, if there are issues that are appearing, well, then we
that's an issue, and that decision, I think, should have been brought to the town board. That's duties that the clerk does, making public notices regarding our meetings and tax notices. That decision should have been brought to this body before you made that decision to take that access away from her. And I think she should be put back on there immediately.
Okay, well, we also have a decision for YouTube. Do you want to discuss that?
No, my discussion now is about, getting her access back. So I'd like to, make sure that she gets her access back.
Okay,
and then, how's everybody else feel about that?
Yeah, I think the supervisor office and the town clerk should be working together on the website. Because let's face it, if Stephen Fazio is sick or something happens, you want somebody else who knows how to manipulate the website and can take over, so we're not stagnant on the website. Absolutely. You could definitely take some things, maybe some rudimentary things that Candace might do and have Stephen do it, but things like public notices and stuff like that, they both should be working together for best practices.
Does this have to be done by resolution, or is this something that you're going to be able to take care of?
She's always done it. Candace has always done it.
Resolution.
No.
Nobody's put on it by resolution.
No.
Right.
No. It's just.
This is a transition to a new website, is that right?
Yeah,
So it sounds like.
There is definitely consistency that you want to have with the website, so we're still working that out. So once we get that consistency down, we can start to add other offices
But
to
in the
it.
meantime, though.
But in the
there's-
meantime, she
yeah,
needs to
she
be able
needs
to
have
make
access to it.
public notices properly.
Yeah, so
So
we'll
that they're-
definitely have to communicate more on
And
that.
there was an
because I
issue
had
because
no
the
idea.
supervisor's office didn't post the agenda 24 hours in advance. So when I brought that to the board's attention and I copied the town clerk, Ms. McHugh said, I don't have access to the website. However, I'll do what I can and I'll upload a picture to Facebook to at least, I mean, I don't know that, you know, is sufficient, but at least it's something to get it
It
out
was
there.
posted. I don't know if you have been
No,
navigating.
today's meeting was posted, but when I sent that email
No, I saw
before,
your
it
email.
wasn't posted.
It was on news and notices. There's a date of posting on there.
Okay.
It didn't get posted till, the next day. So-
December 26th meeting agenda was not posted on November 24th, which would have been
December 24th.
or December 24th, which would have been the last day of business before.
The organizational wasn't put together either, I think, I don't think, one of the agendas I didn't receive until like 6 PM at night. It was the organizational, because it was New Year's Eve. So that one wasn't posted,
I
that's
think
the
there
one
was
I put
another
on
one too that
Facebook.
wasn't there. Oh, that was the one you put on
Yeah, the
Facebook?
organizational I put on Facebook,
So who is the webmaster?
Well, it has the dates that they're posted, so you can look into it, and it's more than 24 hours.
But who's the webmaster? Who's the one that oversees the website?
Steve and I are working on the website posting and learning and getting everything, consistent.
Well, maybe for like those trainings that you said you have coming up with the web designer, next Friday or in 2 Fridays, maybe have Candace,
Yeah.
be there as well so she can learn the ins and outs of the website.
Yeah,
It can't hurt. I mean, more people who know how to run the website, probably the better.
I just think it's consistency. She's been doing it for the last several years. She's had no issue that I know of posting notices properly. I think she continues to do it, and I just think, not letting her being part of this process in the transition to the new website was just not the right thing to do. So I'm encouraging you to get her on there ASAP.
I agree.
yes, I definitely agree with more communication for sure, so we'll have to
while we're
communicate.
talking about the website and communication, there's a lot of inconsistencies on the website. You have both addresses listed. You do have to specify for sales tax purposes that 18 Russell Ave is our mailing address. The location, I don't have a location on my page. Some offices have a location. And then like the court has a location, but it says Queens Town Hall. It needs to say 18 Russell Ave.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that was
One of those
corrected.
things, no, hers still says Queens Town Hall.
Yeah, so Steve came in and said, I tried to correct this and it's not being corrected, so they're still working bugs out of it with the designer.
But what would have been helpful is before it was hard launched, maybe a soft launch to department heads to verify their pages before it went out to the public. That way we could have eliminated all these little tiny things that are wrong and had it done in a more professional manner. Because now we keep going in and changing little things and like court documents aren't there. I was asked FAQs, but they're not on my page. Like I said, I don't have a location on the town clerk page. It's tax season. Believe me, there's people that come in here and say, oh, how come you're not in the new building yet? When are you moving to the church? People don't know. They need to know. We need to have 18 Russell Ave listed on that bottom part as our official mailing address because things going to 54 Mountain Road Extension is not our actual mailing address.
So we brought a soft launch up to the developer, and there's really no such thing. You have to launch it and then work it out as it comes out.
You can usually launch it on a non-public basis so the people here could see it. And
Doesn't have to be
yeah.
published.
Doesn't have to be published. Right. Yeah, and that wasn't done.
And this is just, so I'm looking at the website now, and so for the organizational meeting, it was posted on January 1st for the January 1st's organizational meeting, and it's supposed to be posted 24 hours prior to the meeting. 12/19, our town board meeting agenda was posted for the 12/12/2024 meeting. On 12/19, the town board meeting agenda for 11/25/24 was posted. So, I mean, there's definitely some inconsistency with regards to the 24-hour notice requirement.
Well, I'll have to research that. Any further discussion? That brings us to resolutions.
I, Councilmember Stott, offering the following resolution, move its adoption. Whereas Resolution 127-24, which was passed on November 25th, 2024, contains some clerical errors. And whereas in order to maintain proper accounting to inter-fund transfers stated in Resolution 126-24, should be amended as follows. Whereas the Chief Fiscal Officer has determined that in order to maintain proper balances within various accounts, several inter-fund transfers are necessary. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Queens does hereby authorize Supervisor Stephen Donnelly to transfer the funds as depicted below for the budget year 2025. General Fund A, in the amount of $4,079.64 from account A 1994 contingency to account A 1420.4 attorney contractual. Amount $1,335.27 from account A 1990.4 contingency to account A 5132.4 garage contractual. Amount $800 from account A 1990.4 contingency to account A 7270.4 band concert contractual. $704.33 from account A 1990.4 contingency to account A 8090.1 environmental control leachate facility personnel. $1,308.02 from account A 1990.4 contingency to account A 8090.4 environmental control leachate facility contractual. $1,662.02 from account A 1990.4 contingency to account A 8810.1 cemeteries personal services. $17,000 from account A 3120.1 law enforcement personal services to account A 3120.2 law enforcement equipment. And then lastly, amount $115.74 from account DB 9089.8 other employee benefits to account DB 9055.8 disability insurance.
Second.
All right, so for discussion, we've had an issue with this, and this was tabled from the 26th of December and also the November 25th. This is,
I believe you passed it on November 25th, and
did.
it needed to be amended. So, first off, there's a clerical error in the second whereas. Are we talking about 127? Because we have 127 and 126 listed. So we need to clarify which one we're actually amending.
It's 127.
It's 127?
Yeah.
Okay, so 127 is being amended, if you could change that.
Yep.
And so for clarification, this is going to amend 127, so it will wipe out the transfers that are on that form, and this will be 127A with these new numbers on it.
correct. It's being amended because if you look at the amounts that you're talking about, those, if you're looking at the one that has $9,516.24 from contingency to attorney contractual, those are all estimates. And although we passed this resolution, Sarah, our accountant, did not have the funds to transfer these, even though we approved them. I said we were at zero at that meeting from the 25th, if you recall, Steve, you mentioned that.
I do.
This is what I was told, and Regina also knew because Sarah had never updated the journals, her journal reports. That's the reason for this amendment. And these are the true numbers: 4,079.64 from 0.4 contingency to attorney contractual and so on, 1335. These are the true numbers after the account, the journal reports were brought up to date.
I just want to go check the resolution number because this isn't the resolution, my finished resolution. And usually I have to renumber them. So I wanna make sure it is 127 that you're amending and not 126. Cause if it was the resolution I presented, done, everything would be checked off and filled out.
Yeah, I actually have, I mean, I want you to go check, but I
Yeah.
have my resolution that I filled out that night.
But usually the numbers that are on here on meeting day don't correlate with what they should.
So I just wanna,
127,
I'm sorry?
27?
Yeah, from November 25th.
Yeah.
This is what I filled out, and as you'll know, I put $0 in contingency fund at the
Right.
bottom.
We were actually in a negative at that point and not zero.
How can that be? How can these numbers be so off?
Sarah had not updated the
So
journal
we're proposing
reports.
resolutions before the accountant has done what she needed to do?
Yep. That's how, and I asked that question today, how did this happen? And when Regina told me that Sarah hadn't updated the journals, I said, how does that happen? And there was just a miscommunication because Sarah typically comes in on a Saturday or on a holiday. I actually bumped into her on the first of this year while I was in office, and she was doing, updating the budget.
But the resolution says, the resolution that we passed on November 25th says, whereas the chief fiscal officer has determined that in order to maintain proper balances within various accounts, several inter-fund transfers are necessary. You are the chief fiscal officer.
And that's true. In order to maintain proper balances, it was determined.
But
I'm
your
not
numbers
the
are off.
accountant. I'm not the accountant.
But you are the chief fiscal officer.
That's why, yeah. The
So
chief
how often do you chat with Sarah?
Very irregularly.
Yeah, that's clear.
She does her job. She communicates with Regina. Regina communicates with me. I communicate with you. A
However
chief
you want to
fiscal
run your
officer
office, that's up to
is-
you.
Is essentially
But
a coach.
clearly it's
He comes
wrong.
up with the plays. He doesn't run down on the field and throw the ball around. He doesn't make sure that everybody has their cleats and their pads.
You can justify it however you want, but your numbers
This is the
are
job.
wrong.
This
Your
is-
numbers are wrong.
These are the accountants and the business office managers' numbers.
So let's go line by line. So November 25th, the first number is 9,516.24.
Right,
The
this is
new
when
number-
Regina thought she had $15,000 in contingency. It turned out not to be so.
So this new number, this 4,079.64 is less because there wasn't as much money in contingency as you, Sarah, had thought at the time of this resolution on November 25th.
Right. These numbers from November 25th are estimates. And if you compare them to
Yeah,
what
I'm
we're-
working on
what
that.
we're doing right now, you can
Right.
see there are small adjustments, especially if you look at,
Well, 9,516.24 to 4,079.64 is over half.
well, that's because she thought she was putting the rest of contingency into attorney's fees, because the attorney's fees are higher than the budget was in 2023.
All right, so let's continue. The next line, 1335.27 matches. So I like that. The next line, $800 matches. I like that. The next one, $700.50. The new one is 704.33. Okay, there's a couple of dollar discrepancy.
That's because she had the true numbers
It
then.
is 126.
My biggest concern though is on November 25th, there was a $20,000 line item that was going from A3120.1 Law Enforcement Personal Services to A3120.2 Law Enforcement Equipment. And that $20,000 is no longer on this new one.
Yeah, it disappeared.
So where did that $20,000 go? We passed this resolution on November 25th. We said that $20,000 was gonna go, I'm sorry, $14,000. $14,000 from A3120.1 Law Enforcement Personal Services to A3120.4 Law Enforcement Contractual. Where did that $14,000 go?
So it's,
Well, there's two lines for law enforcement, and one line's.
Right.
Well, there's two
Right.
lines on November 25th. There's only one line on January 9th.
Because
Well, one-
3120.1 is the sheriff's, or the police department was under on payroll, and it went to 3120.2 because they were simultaneously over on bills for upfits and repairs and things like that. So that has to move over.
No, that's there. The next one, from November 25th, the next one, the $14,000. A3120.1 law enforcement personal services to A3120.4 law enforcement contractual is not even on January 9th.
Yeah, it's still an A fund. It didn't need to be moved apparently when she got the true numbers in. These were just estimates in 25 of November. These are the true numbers of 9 January.
That concerns me, that they're estimates.
Also, you can reach out anytime you want. You have Sarah's emails and Regina's emails. If you
I
really need the
understand.
details, you can reach out to them.
And I do, but I'm asking you, as the chief fiscal officer, I'm asking you for explanations on a resolution that is being presented.
You don't understand what a chief fiscal officer does, apparently, because I've explained it 3 times, and I read it again today, knowing that this conversation was going to happen. The accountant does her job. She speaks to Regina, who's the business office manager, and Regina speaks to me, and then we work out a plan of how we're gonna do it. The CFO works out the fiscal plan, the strategy. It's like plays in a football field.
But the
It's
CFO
not-
is presenting the resolution.
Correct, that's how we formally do it here.
Well, I wouldn't. As the CFO, but I'm not the
I guess
CFO, you're the
it's easy for you
CFO.
to say not being in this job. Okay, so are we clear of what's
No,
happening?
I'm not clear at all.
And it is resolution 126
26.
officially, so if you do have to pass it, please amend that.
So in this, the one that we're attempting to pass right now, resolution 00, do you have a number on that?
Right now, it's going to, listen, right now, this is 126A, is all you're gonna write on this one. Yep. It'll be actually kind of numbered twice, so I can put it with the amended resolution and also that it happened in 2025. So there kind of will be an asterisk next to it, because once you amend something, I have resolution that you passed, 126-24. So now I'm going to take this one, fill it out, label it 126A as an amended version of 126. Okay, so they will fall in line in the records. So in Laserfiche and in my files, they will both be there, but I'll also asterisk one in 2025, so we know that we fixed it in 2025. It's,
So it'll appear in both places, so
Right.
that if someone were looking at what happened on a gift, meeting agreement, they'd be able to tell.
it's just easier when everything is sorted out ahead of time, so numbers don't have to be jumbled. But I think I'm just going to recommend from now on, if they do resolutions, don't number them. I will do the numbering afterwards. Because when you take things out and then you put things in, it changes the numbers. And a lot of times the numbers that are on here, I'm not even quite sure where they came from. So I think I'm gonna recommend that if we can, from now on, when resolutions are brought out, they not be numbered 0025, and I will number them the next day officially.
So, Mr. Donnelly, what you're saying is, in November, when we approved this one, those were the numbers that, Regina had estimated
What she thought was in
those
contingency
accounts.
at the time.
Right. But then
Since then,
Sarah came by
right,
and said,
updated
I
the
had to
journal
update my
report.
thing, and it looks like we're a little off here and there, so
Right.
these are the adjustments. And for example, like the $20,000, that was, are you saying it's back in A fund?
Yes.
Well, no, the $20,000
remember
is now 17,000,
It's not 17, right?
but the 14,000 is no longer anywhere.
Right. I mean, so what do we do? Do you just want to like?
So these are the true numbers that Regina got from Sarah. And in order to fix contingency, this resolution will do just that. Because the ones from,
Because Regina said in the email that, you know, the difference is $5,471.38. So the difference of this is that 5,000 number, I would assume.
Well, plus $14,000.
But we're saying the
That's not
14,000 went back. We didn't. It was.
But she didn't explain that.
It was. Yeah. It's back in a fund.
If this is more than just like a minute clerical error, would it be prudent to rescind 126?
That's what I was thinking.
And is there any fiscal liability to that being 1 in 24, 1 in 25? If you just rescinded 126 completely and adopted this as a separate resolution?
That would make sense. See what Rich says.
I mean, I think you're effectively rescinding it, but I can give
Right.
that some thought, whether you,
Will you
I
rescind it?
think the
or-
question would be,
Because there's so many.
I think she set it up as amending the motion because that would have been in that fiscal year. Right, whereas a motion now isn't going to modify that budget.
Right.
And so I could certainly confirm that with her.
Mhm.
I can't give you an answer
I know.
today, but I could certainly
I
confirm that.
appreciate you looking into it. And it's up to them. I'm just asking.
I mean, I'm not comfortable going forward with this amendment, so, if it's possible to rescind, I think that that's the way to go. I think it'd be cleaner, I think it'd be more, but as the resolution is presented now, I'm not in favor of it, because
so would the board be comfortable asking Regina any questions about this? She had written us an email today, which she thought explained it. And everyone got that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before this meeting, no one understood that?
I wasn't provided a copy of the resolution until I got here. So I didn't see the actual resolution. I saw her explanation. And her explanation was an explanation based upon our outstanding questions from the prior meeting. But her explanation doesn't explain where this $14,000 line item went. Now, I understand you're saying that it just went back to a fund, but there's no explanation to that.
It didn't go anywhere. She just decided not to move it.
But on November
from services
25th, it
to
was determined that we
contractual.
needed to move $14,000 to A 3120.4.
Yeah, correct. I think she was attempting to just use the funds from contingency for the new budget to start at 0. And so, once she got the new numbers from Sarah, that's where this resolution came in. That's why you see minor adjustments like $4. That's the true number. She had estimated 750 cents and it came in at 704.33.
Again, I would be
From
comfortable with
November
that,
to
but I'm not
January.
comfortable with $9,516.24 going to $4,079.64.
Well, she just thought she had $9,516.24 left back in November. When she got the true numbers, it came out to be $4,079.64.
So when did she get the true numbers? Because this was passed on November 25th.
From between November 25th and probably in December at some point when Sarah came in. She usually
To me, that's a big number difference.
Which, are you still talking about the attorney's fees?
Yeah. That's a big number.
Because she had thought she had $15,000 in contingency at the time. That's why I said to you 0. I had gotten the wrong information because she had the wrong information. It wasn't at 0. It was actually, I think, 5,471.38 in the negative. That's why Sarah had to.
So we went from thinking that we had
Okay.
$15,000 in contingency to really being in the negative? That's what you're saying?
No.
That's what you just said.
We thought we had 0 in there when we were 5,000 plus in the negative.
Would it be helpful for me to reach out to both the auditor and Regina and just have them clarify. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if the auditor is recommending that we make certain adjustments to accounts so that the books are in the order that the auditor believes that they need to be in, we need to act on a resolution. But if there are questions about it, I can reach out to the auditor and Regina and maybe get the book on a conference call and.
I mean, again, I have no problem talking. I talk to both of them whenever I need to. I send them emails, I get responses, but I didn't have this resolution until I walked into the building today. If I had this resolution yesterday, I could have done what I had to do yesterday afternoon or this morning to get answers to these questions. But I didn't get this resolution until I walked in here. And I think that's a problem as well.
So I think the answer to your question is yes. I think,
So we're tabling it?
Yes, that's what I
I
would
mean,
do.
I think that's where we're heading.
I would say we have to.
And so I will certainly do that. At the same time, if individual board member, I mean, I don't want to.
No, I know.
Get in the middle of a direct conversation, so by all means, I would recommend you reach out to.
I mean, and
Also, we can double check, but I'm sure Fazio sent this out days ago.
It wasn't to
wasn't
me.
just in your, well, I guess we'll have to go back and research the email.
Windows sent out for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the agenda was sent out in a couple different formats.
What were the
We'll do
resolutions
this,
No.
but we won't do this if we decide not to do this, so we just gotta send it out. We're just tabling that, do we need a motion to table or? Yes? Make a motion to table the amendment, or make a motion to table the resolution, 0025.
26A25, second. All in favor?
Aye.
I, Councilmember Hoteling, offer the following resolution to move with adoption. Whereas in order to balance the 2025 budget transfer is needed, and whereas the supervisor would like to transfer the balance of $100 to the DB fund, and whereas the capital project HM purchase of highway equipment is complete, the town board approves service on this project, and now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Queens is hereby authorized Supervisor Stephen Donnelly to transfer the following funds as depicted below for the budget year 2025. HM 599, appropriated fund $100. HM 9950.9, transfer to DB fund $100.
I second it, and we had a question about this before, and this $100 just goes back to fund balance, not to any specific line item.
Yeah, this was about a bond that was paid, or it's.
Yeah.
And then she answered that question, I remember getting an email on that, yeah.
I'm just concerned because it's
The wording
HM.
hasn't changed.
What's that?
The wording hasn't been changed since the last resolution, correct?
Right.
Okay, so we have an explanation that it's going to the general DB fund.
As opposed to a particular budget line item.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
But my concern is this HM 9950.9 doesn't clearly depict a fund balance. Like, shouldn't the resolution say it's going from HM 599 appropriated fund $100 to to DB fund balance? Like, I don't know what HM 9950.9 is.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find that email she sent. Let's see if
It's an unallocated
Yeah, it was
fund, it just
there.
goes back to unallocated fund balance. And if you recall, we looked up 995.9 and it wasn't in the budget because it doesn't exist.
Correct, and I understand that, but I think this resolution has to be reworded because this doesn't match. It doesn't say that it's going to unallocated fund balance. It says that it's going to HM 9950.9.
Anytime it is stated to go back, it says it's gonna go back to DB fund 9950.9, not HM. It should be DB 9959. 9950.9. That's at least in Regina's email. She mentioned DB Fund 9950.9.
But there is
The
no such
resolution
thing.
allows Sarah to move the money from from the HM 599, which doesn't exist anymore because the project is
Yeah,
over.
sure.
The equipment was purchased. It allows Sarah to update her journal report.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't think that it's written correctly.
She says it's going back to fund balance, not going back to current year budget line.
Right, so there's not gonna be a budget line
Right.
item in our budget,
Right.
but I don't think that it should say HM 9950.9.
It
Shouldn't it say unallocated fund balance? DB unallocated fund balance, something that's more clear. Down the road, someone's gonna say, well, what the heck is HM 9950.9?
Well, it
Right.
probably makes sense to the accountant because Regina probably got the information from Sarah, and that's how she wrote this. So it would make sense. Probably that is in her journal reports, how she, one of the hundreds of binders that she has in her office. And that we just authorized her to do her job.
Maybe that's how it's categorized for Sarah, you're saying? In one of your journals?
Yeah, she's been the accountant for the town for ages.
Sure.
Can't you just write it? Fund balance as HM and make it more
That would
simple?
make me for.
Maybe it's something for her to understand while she's running through
Yeah.
hundreds of lines of numbers that she can easily
Was that email you
transfer.
sent, was that for Sarah or Regina?
That was the email from Regina, but she says 9959.9, doesn't say anything about HM, she just says DB fund, doesn't say anything about HM, and then it's just transfer to fund balance. So she doesn't say anything about HM at all in there, which, I don't necessarily like the way it's written either, so. But that's just, I'd rather have it be cleaner, but that's just me too, so.
Possibly it's clean for the accountant to understand it.
Well, then it should have been written that way, so we can understand it. And, anybody who picks it up can go and say, look at our town budget and say, hey, where's HM 9950.9 in our town budget? And if there is no HM 9959 in our town budget that somebody can look at, it's not really clean.
Okay. So,
You can vote if you want.
if you prefer tabling it, do you want to vote on it?
I mean,
You're the chief fiscal officer, you can move as you want.
All in favor of accepting this resolution as written? Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
and I'm sure we'll get an email tomorrow from Sarah saying it's for this reason, but again, it should be specified a little bit more simplistically for us to understand, right?
Resolution was not passed.
Yeah.
You were a yay?
And they,
A nay, okay.
it's mine, right?
No, that's me.
That's you?
I, Supervisor Donnelly, offer the following resolution and move its adoption. Whereas the town board of the town of Queens seeks to acquire additional professional planning and engineering services for the town of Queens, and whereas LaBerge Engineering and Counseling Group LTD has submitted a proposal to provide professional planning and engineering services to the town with specific scopes of service and expenditures to be presented to and approved by the town board as they are needed. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Queens does hereby authorize Stephen Donnelly to sign upon the advice of council a proposed agreement between the town of Queens, Albany County, New York, and LaBerge Engineering and Consulting Group LTD for professional services, draft dated November 18, 2024, provided by LaBerge Engineering and Surveying Group LTD.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
So for discussion, I have the agreement, the draft agreement in front of me, It's dated November 18, 2024. This is probably a question for Rich, but I just want to make sure because on page number 1, it says professional consulting services, including but not limited to wastewater treatment planning and design, drinking water supply design, distribution and treatment, stormwater system design and program management, planning and zoning board review, land use review, strategic and comprehensive planning, grant writing and administration, land surveying, road and highway engineering, architectural services, dam safety, petroleum bulk storage, government operations, shared services, and efficiency planning and construction administration, observation, and other professional engineering and planning services as requested and authorized as an addendum to this general services agreement by the town board.
That last clause is the key one.
Okay.
It's that as requested and authorized as an addendum to this general service.
I just wanted to make sure that this page 1 wasn't acting as an addendum
Right.
with those services listed above.
Correct. And, like if you take a look at the second page, the initial payment is $0.
Right.
Payments after that point are, monthly in proportion to services actually performed. If you take a look at 8.4.
Yep.
So this is their sort of standard global template
Okay.
that they enter into, that in theory could cover, all of the scope of services that they potentially would offer. But on a case-by-case basis, you would have an addendum that would come before this board and be approved, generally either for a some certain or maybe at an hourly rate, not to exceed number, that type of thing, but we would come back to you as an addendum.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
I think having the meeting with LaBerge that day was informative, and I think that having the ability to use a couple different firms, is useful. Don't want to put too many eggs in one basket of one firm. You get one firm that has so many projects on their plate, spread it out a little bit. So having this option, I think, could be beneficial.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's a town board decision on any addendum to this agreement going forward, and it's not just a supervisor decision.
That's the purpose of the general service agreement.
That's,
Yeah,
didn't I second it?
you did.
You did.
Any
We're in
further
discussion.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Councilmember Bruno, sorry.
So,
You have
Rich,
questions?
yeah, I just wanted to ask a question.
Okay.
So the signature on this attestation, could that be the town clerk
Where you're looking at
at the signature sheet, page 8?
and whoever your witness would be, you would sign at the byline, and then someone else would witness it. I don't think it would be the clerk, it could be Fazio, it could be Gina.
So, Nick, you wanna just sign up?
Yeah.
The attest? Linda, sorry for the interruption.
That's okay.
Can you make sure I get a copy of that, please?
Councilmember Bruno offer the following resolution and move its adoption. Whereas the town board of the town of Queens previously determined that it would be beneficial to the town to allocate additional funds for the cost of the construction and renovation of town hall. Whereas those funds, $291,066.40, additional appropriation to reserves, were previously allocated for such purposes as reflected in line item A0962, capital reserve in the town's 2024 budget. And whereas the additional appropriation of reserves has not yet been transferred, and the town board has determined that the additional appropriation to reserves is not necessary at this time. And whereas the town's accountant recommends that the town board confirm its intent that the additional appropriation to reserves not be added to the capital reserve, but be added to the general fund balance for the town's A fund. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Queens hereby determines that $291,066.40, the reserve funds, shall be transferred from A0962 to the town's unallocated fund balance for the A fund.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
So just for discussion, again, I've indicated this, privately, but, we don't know what it's gonna cost to upfit the, new town hall building. I do think that it would be beneficial for us to use this money and earmark it for that. But, I guess putting it in unallocated fund balance is okay, cause then we can use it for other, I wanna make sure we have
The money.
cash available, cause we don't know what it's gonna cost to upfit. Even, the most recent drawing that was submitted to MJ, their, response back to us did indicate that it was probably going to be under $500,000. I don't know if you guys saw that in the notes section of what they sent back. But again, I wanna make sure that we have enough balance. We do have $700,000 in that capital reserve fund. So that's just what I have for discussion.
And I guess the only other thing too, if we don't put it somewhere, it goes to capital reserve. If we put it in fund balance, I guess the only good thing about that too is, it goes and we can invest it, and almost $300,000 at 4.5%, 4.2%, sorry. We can make some money on that and hopefully, grow a few $1,000s before we have to use it. I mean, are we gonna have to use it? Yeah, we're gonna have to use it for eventually town hall, whether it's, probably the addition part in the back, I would assume, but maybe by the time we get to that point, we can make some money off it. Whereas we couldn't do that if we had it in capital reserve. So I think that's what the understanding was for
I had
this.
spoken with the auditor about this one in particular, and she just felt that because you currently have the 700 in a capital reserve dedicated to the improvements to town hall, that this gave you a little bit more flexibility because you had used, say, 900,000 and change out of your unallocated fund balance for the purchase. This will help replenish a portion of that. If at some point you need more than the 700 that's currently in the capital reserve, you would be able to transfer it at that time. She just thought this gives you more flexibility.
Thank you.
No further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Upcoming meetings, January 13th, 2025 is a ZBA meeting at 7 PM, and also on January 22nd, another one at 7 PM. And January 23rd is our next town board meeting at 6 PM.
Are we having?
We have a joint
A joint
meeting.
meeting?
We
Well,
do.
Right, or
15th.
sorry.
Yeah, and just to discuss that a bit, if everybody wants to start to pull some questions together, the mayor emailed me today about what we would like to discuss, the stuff from the old business, and if we have any new business. I think you want to discuss the sewer.
Mhm.
I put that in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can pull that together before the 15th. And that's at 6 PM? Yeah, and that's at the
In the
village.
village, right?
Yeah. Public comment time. Anybody has anything, comments or questions, except for the
I
lectern?
have a quick question. So when you make these resolutions, they're not factual numbers, they're estimated numbers?
Well, for that particular one, it was, I think because it was year end and we were wrapping up the budget.
That's not a normal thing, though.
It's my understanding that, the business office developed a resolution based on numbers they thought were correct, because they thought that certain adjustments had already been made by the auditor.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out that the auditor had not yet in fact made those adjustments, and so the report that they used to come up with the numbers was just not an up-to-date report. And so I had that discussion with the auditor, they've come up with what are the correct numbers. And I'll certainly clarify that with direct discussions.
Yeah,
with
it just is
the auditor.
bothering me that they're approving a resolution that really isn't factual.
Correct.
Right?
I think everyone thought it was, and as it turns out, it was
Yeah,
not.
but you know,
based on an
thought,
updated report.
assume,
Correct.
you know. Really And so the latest estimate for the building is 500,000?
Well, we don't have a number yet,
Don't have a number yet.
but what they said in their notes section was that they thought it would be under 500,000, based upon the drawing that Mr. Donnelly submitted.
I would like to ask the lawyer something. Why would you allow the town board to sign or to buy a building that they have no idea what it's gonna cost to redo it?
Estimates.
It was a, let me start from this, I guess. It's my understanding that there was a recognized need that this current town hall facility is not adequate. The town board was pursuing different options. They identified a piece of property that was on the open market that was available, that they felt was probably the best possible solution under the circumstances. They entered into a contract because if they had not, someone else could have. And that opportunity could have essentially disappeared. And they would have been left still in this situation where they have a town hall that they feel they really can't have people working in, particularly in the basement, with really, one less option to pursue. And so they didn't necessarily have all of the details in terms of what might an addition look like, what might the specifics of a renovation look like, but they really felt that under all the circumstances, it was the best option. And it was too risky to just leave that building on the open market and leave open the possibility that somebody else would buy it.
That's a poor choice.
Well, I got a question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
For when you guys bought the church, did you have full plans drawn out and done? No. They bought it and they bought it, and just like us, they thought, oh, well, it's a good.
Well, they went into contract
There was
with
a
it.
vision, you're right.
Right, it's a vision. You have you're like, hey, we got to get it. It came up in a small town. There's not a lot of real estate here. We bought it. That you bought the church, and you said, we've talked to X, Y, and Z people. They said it's feasible to do. We can fit everybody in here. It's got X number of square feet. But just like when they tried to buy the church, it was a vision. It was, hey, this
No,
will
we never
work for our
actually bought
needs.
But you could see,
What's that?
We only entered into contract.
Well, right, but it
The
would have been
church-
purchased.
You
Yeah,
had a
but the
contract
church had-
that they let us out of, but didn't.
Right.
Yes,
the
right.
church
Well,
had
they
room.
also knew that there were issues with their side of the
You know?
contract as well, so.
What's that?
Talking about the
I
church.
mean, the church had room. You
Yeah.
could see it.
Oh, but.
But
This
so
has-
many
this-
problems.
And to answer your question, Ms. Tanner, this has room. This has, the square footage and the plans have been brought to the boards, the head of the departments. They've all said, with this space, that will work for us. This is feasible for us. So the only thing that this building does not have is this area, right? And we've already talked
it
to.
doesn't have a court. It
Well,
doesn't.
Right,
That's what I
a
mean,
court,
yeah.
right, a court, but to fit every single person who runs and operates a town, other than the court and for town board and PBCBA meetings, everybody else has essentially signed off and said that is enough room for us to do our jobs.
I can't believe that. Those rooms are so small.
It's
I mean, there's a
How many
bed, there's a sink and a chair.
But they can open walls there.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
bigger than.
Yeah,
that's part of the
work that's gonna
Those
be done.
offices are bigger than
It's
the
bigger
ones
than
that
you
we're
think
in
as we walk
currently.
around there.
But I still think it was a poor thing to buy a building that you don't know how much it's gonna cost. At one point, I was told it's gonna be $4 million.
Oh, my gosh.
Well, that was the first
Good, yeah.
estimate.
Right.
sure.
Right.
Sure.
And I just think it was poor.
And Barb, I can understand that, but I
Yeah.
stick by too the fact that we live in a small town. And,
I know,
and
but-
there's only so much opportunities to buy something. or
Then you
to
build a
something.
new one.
Barbara, that was voted down.
Then you build a new one.
Yeah, we looked at
They voted
we
it
had
down.
Hillcrest,
They voted
which
it
was
down.
$5 million, and people came out because it's in a terrible location. And they came out and they spoke out in numbers. We had the new building, which was voted down. People came out and said it's a terrible idea, it's too much money. And then we had 9W. It's a perfect location, it's an existing newer building, solves our problems quickly, and for minimal work, which we are doing for an upfit right now, which is earmarked, I guess, to be under 500,000 according to MJ.
But you didn't know that when you bought the building. You didn't know how much it was gonna cost to do it.
Yeah,
What's
so
an
we
estimate?
did, you could do an estimate by saying, well, if we're not building.
Don't
completely
estimate, because
new-
you know what happened tonight with that estimate.
Well, there's no other way to logically make a decision. You have to sometimes estimate what you're gonna come out to.
Well,
So the building was 1 million, so we're already millions less, and the upfit, even if it's half, we're 1.5. All the offices are together in a perfect location, along with the police, so everyone's safe. All we have to do is put on the addition. We got wildly extravagant plans. We just want to do the 30 by 70, which we've always said right from the beginning. Right from, I think, May we started this process. It's never changed. What have we been presented with has changed. We haven't changed our mind. We look at a minimal upfit, a 30 by 70 court. This right here is 19 by 50. So 30 by 70 is plenty of room.
mhm.
And we don't estimate that coming in at anywhere near what they have, MJ had proposed at 5.3, 4.7. So we will get into that building for minimal upfit, and we will have to probably bond out 2 million to build on the
And
30 by
suppose
70.
People turn that down. Then what?
Well, we'll just have to come up with a plan C.
That's what I'm saying. You know, you don't buy a building unless you know what it's gonna cost you, or get a good estimate. Sorry, but that's the way I feel.
You're entitled
It
to it.
was the
Thank you.
best option, Barbara, it really was.
What's that?
It was the best option.
That's what you say. I don't feel that way.
I was so happy that I came to this meeting tonight because you all spoke about the vouchers and the finances, and you know what I think of that. There are many things that I wrote down that you were just saying about those transfers, and I'll get to that later. But this is what I wrote down to say tonight. So bear with me because I had to write it out in longhand because my printer didn't work today. So I would like to comment on a discussion that was held at your organizational meeting. During that meeting, a discussion was held on finances and payment of vouchers. I was very pleased that finally board members were aware of the problems with the vouchers, even though it has taken a year to discover. As you are all aware, I have been reviewing the vouchers monthly for the last year and a half. Throughout the year, I have found vouchers that were not coded properly, vouchers that had fund balances brought forward after sending a payment, vouchers with late fees, vouchers with different total amounts on one voucher to be paid, vouchers that are not broken up between funds, vouchers that have sales tax included on the invoices submitted, vouchers that are missing department head signatures, vouchers signed by the supervisor and not the department head. I have a book full of these problems and I have found throughout the year. At a prior meeting, the supervisor stated that he and the bookkeeper check all vouchers before they go out of his office. Hasn't the supervisor and bookkeeper attended 2 different seminars, each on finances for the town? Then why are vouchers being paid with all the problems I have listed here? I also heard Mr. Schmidt say that the bookkeeper is going to work part-time in 2025. If the bookkeeper can't do the job properly with working full-time, how do you think she can do the job properly working part-time? The voucher system is a disaster now. Can you imagine what the finances will be like in 2025? Mr. Schmidt also suggested that 2 people sign all checks. I disagree. The problem is the voucher process. It is not being performed properly. So 2 people signing the checks, that's at the end of the whole process, so that's not going to help Stephen. Vouchers take time to be coded properly, added up properly, making sure signatures are on the vouchers, and making sure all invoices are properly attached. The finances of the town are the most important job to be performed by the supervisor and the town board. Please take this seriously and do something about the problems I have now made you aware of. I look forward to not finding all these problems in the new year. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nita.
I have a few things when you were talking about those transfers. You're talking about the contingency fund. And I noticed that all of her resolutions, she's always made transfers from the contingency fund. Well, you don't just make it from the contingency fund. You also go, say if they have a .2 and their .4 is overdrawn, and you know they're not going to get any equipment out of that .2, you transfer that money first before you go to your contingency. And for her to say that she didn't know what was in that contingency account, there is a way that you certainly would, and that's the way that I did it. You have a ledger sheet, and you keep your balance on that contingency fund when you're transferring money. So you know when you're getting down to zero in that contingency fund. And you do not make estimates like she made on that one resolution. You don't estimate at all. You put the correct amount that it's overdrawn for that month. There's also a report on the financial system that the bookkeeper keeps track of everything, and the accountant also goes into. And on that system, there's a report that all you have to do is spit it out once a month or whenever you want to, especially when you're getting near the end of the year. Maybe weekly you're going to spit that report out. And it tells you every account that's overdrawn. And that's how you then go and do your transfers of how it was, what each line item is overdrawn. The other resolution that you were talking about, I think it was you, Ronnie, where it was the HM account and into the, was it DB or DA?
DB.
Supposed to go to DB. Yeah.
But HM, that's a capital project. Now, there could have been money in the capital project account,
Right.
say for a truck, that was transferred there when we got the money for it, and the $100 is left. So that's why then that's coming out of HM.
Well, that we don't disagree with that. It's just the way it was coded that where it was going to go.
Right.
So no, that explanation was answered, in Regina's email. Just the coding as to, where it was being transferred. It still was being transferred back to another HM, according to the resolution, and that's wrong.
And Sarah updates those journals monthly. Sarah is here every month updating those journals. This is not Sarah's fault at all. Sarah has worked for this town since I think it was the year 2000. Never had these kind of problems before. To me, the problems are in the supervisor's office and with your bookkeeper. That's all that I have to say. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Nita.
I would just like to respond to the points being made. The voucher process is being done properly, and there have been no problems other than what you were saying. Our office is running efficiently and properly. If we want to, and the town bills are being paid, like I said, there's only been 5 issues.
What about late fees? What about sales tax? Go back and look at your vouchers.
Right, and so we,
find all these things that I mentioned here. I wouldn't have mentioned them if I didn't see them on the vouchers. It's just not being done properly. And she's not taking the time to do them properly. That's the problem. So she's
disagree. I
She
think
can't do it full-time. She's certainly not gonna do it part-time. Your finances are gonna really be fouled up for 2025.
well, we haven't had any issues so far, and we're actually way ahead of schedule.
Because I'm sure you haven't looked at every voucher like I look at every voucher monthly.
Yeah, I go through every voucher.
No, I'm sorry. You said that once before too, and that I don't believe. But then I can believe that because you don't know what you're doing either.
Well, it's also, we were in collection before, I guess, when you were in office, Nita, so, you know,
Never in collection.
with the water, yeah, because we have been going back through the records. Crystal Rock, I think the quote was Nita was in tears at how bad the checking process was. And you guys had to figure that all out. And cheers to you because you did. But you know how difficult the job it is, and you know that Regina's doing a great job. And I asked her if she wanted to come here
Don't
tonight.
put those words in my mouth because she's not doing a great
No,
job.
I'm saying that because I work with her every day. So I will go through these one by one with her, and at the next meeting, it'll be an old business, and we'll clear it up just like we cleared up the past due, which were past due not because of the supervisor's office, but because of department heads putting in their vouchers and payments too late. And there was 5 of them last year, and there were 2 pennies to the dollar on mistakes, a 9-cent one and a 14-cent one. In an entire year, 365 days, 5 past dues and 2 clerical errors. I think that's a pretty good.
Everybody can make mistakes, and I'm not saying that I didn't make
Correct.
mistakes either.
Yeah.
Everybody can make mistakes. But not all of these that I mentioned to you. Yeah, I have a book full of them.
Okay, well, thank you for your input. We will
Okay, thank you for listening.
address this at the,
board.
you're welcome.
In the voucher you're discussing as far as the late payments, you stated that it didn't was received from the town until December 17th. So how did the court put that in late when they didn't get it till December 17th? It's not fair to say that they put their voucher in late. The
They
department
stamped
did
it.
not, but they didn't get it until then. So don't sit here and say that they did it late. They did not. It's not their fault that the voucher didn't come in for 2 months, and maybe that's why it paid late, but they didn't sit on it for
Are
2
you talking
months.
for from the vendor?
Yeah.
Right, so these things happen.
But you stated that the department heads put their vouchers in
Thank you for
late.
correct,
That is not
that's a
the
good
case.
point. Yeah. Thank you.
How you doing tonight? I just want to ask a couple questions. I heard the cost, the other estimate. Do they know kind of a time limit on how long it would take to do the construction?
No, we don't have any of that information yet.
They had said estimated from 2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months. And we also have
This is MJ, mind you.
yeah, we also have a lease with Nolan. Do we have an estimate how long we have that lease to rent spaces?
December 31st this year.
2025.
This year.
Okay, so we have enough time to do the construction and get the people in.
So is that gonna be a month-to-month lease?
Well, ours
No.
When does it expire?
expires at the end of this year.
Oh,
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment? Hearing none, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.